thermal explosion. Leica joins the heat-seeking revolution and Roy takes its new Calonox spotter for a spin.
It'll be interesting to see if we can pick up a pizzle.
Hot cross bunnies. Tom Davies takes more elderly thermal out after rabbits in Devon. Songbird snack bar. A grouse shooter sold the RSPB his grousemoor, which the bird charity promised to make a shining beacon of rare birds. How's that going? And art boar. Katie Hargreaves is offering a signed print just in time for Valentine's. We have news, we have hunting YouTube, and we have money off shooting sticks if you stick around. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. Thermal is the new must-have hunting accessory. The market has never been so strong and busy, and that means choice. This morning, Roy has the chance to field test the Leica Calonox View, not to be confused with the Leica Calonox Sight, which is a thermal add-on for your scope. Roy has had his hands on his fair share of night vision and thermal in his time, and he's expecting a lot from this premium product.
No heat sources at the moment, but fantastic image quality. I'm just scanning all of the woodlands out past the stubble turnip field that we're in, just checking all the edges, and as I say, I'm really impressed with the clarity so far.
To give it a good outing, we're using it for two scenarios. Firstly, to help with our hunting on a block of ground managed by Paul Smith, a game farmer and game meat processor based in Sussex. Then we're planning to head over to Paul's deer park to spot and assess some less camera-shy deer. Nathan, also known as Smokey, is our guide. Spotting as we go, he takes us to a high seat to lie in wait.
What we're hoping is the fallow are going to be feeding back into where they sleep up, so they're obviously going to be, or hopefully going to be heading back into the woods to rest up for the day.
With nothing moving, Nathan makes a good subject for the Leica. It even picks out the veins on the back of his hands. With so many slots about, these deer have to be somewhere. If they won't come to us, we need to go to them. Smokey spots a deer ahead. However, the thermal picks up another on the right, and then more which we don't record in the excitement.
Okay, so we've just come across a couple of fallow here. They're just about 120 metres away at the minute. So, again, just spotting with the thermal, you could pick up the deer just on the left of the track. Just you see it quite well there. And then there's another deer that we can see so far, just sticking his head up about 15 yards to the right, 15 metres to the right on that one. So we'll see if we can get a shot on those or move up and see what we've got.
Smokey sees one opportunity, Roy sees many. Which is best? In this case, it's Smokey, because if we'd spent less time letting him know about the deer he couldn't see, Roy might have got a shot off. Of course, we could have shared the images on our phones, as like most good thermals, the Calonox can stream to a smartphone as well as record stills and video on the internal hard drive. We move on, and within 10 minutes, the thermal picks up another group looking settled just inside the wood. Unfortunately, Roy doesn't have a shot. There's no backstop, and he'd have to weave his bullet through a lot of cover.
What we're going to do now is head back up. We're going to go into the park, and then hopefully we should get some phenomenal imagery in the park, because we've got a good amount of deer in there. One of the things I'm really interested in doing is just seeing the identification range on this unit, just to see how far we can pick them up, because in the reading through the manual for it, it says it's got a 3 kilometre detection range. we're not going to be able to get 3 kilometres this morning, but we're going to be able to get a reasonable distance and just have a look down into the park and see where or what sort of distances we can actually get positive sexually, where we can get positive sex ID on the animals. So it'll be interesting to see if we can pick up a pizzle.
It looks like it's game over, but Paul calls us. He's got deer on a field closer to his farm. To get a safe shot, Roy is told to get into another high seat.
Paul was out on another bit of ground this morning as well, and he spotted this group of deer, and then just in the lee of the field here we can just see the sorrel in the group just above the line here, but everything else, there's about 20 deer there apparently, but they're all unsighted at the moment, just in the dead ground in the field in between us and the wood. They're about 220 yards away at the moment. Apparently there's a pricket in there, and then obviously some does. So we're not going to take the sorrel, we're just going to see what the pricket's like when he comes out. Or one of the does.
It's a 200-metre shot. It drops 25 metres away.
Okay, so nice little doe out of that group. Nice condition. A long morning, but luckily Paul was feeling like a gentleman and guided us in, so she's a little bit lean on the top line. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of deer on here. So yeah, again, there's always competition for grazing. There's always competition for feeding. So again, just another reason that you've got to keep on your coals, and you've got to keep up with your numbers off the ground, because otherwise, at the end of the day, the deer do suffer.
Piers and Smokey take the deer back to the truck, and before anyone says anything, they live on site as part of the same farm COVID bubble.
But I mean, that is the thing though, isn't it? Yeah,
Before we get a look at the Swedish fallow Paul has introduced to his deer park, we get to sample some of his venison burgers and sausages. He, like so many, is selling venison direct, finding local markets for his Wealden game.
So we've got 2 guys full-time on the deer management, and then we've got a processing facility as well. And we're plucking pheasants as well in a normal, not this year, but so we've got 5 full-time staff, and we'll be processing game. And
I suppose, I mean, it's worked out fantastically for you this year, because otherwise, the same as the rest of us, trying to get rid of our venison through the normal channels is a bit of a challenge.
It's pushed us, it's pushed us on. We sit there and we sort of dabble away at it, but then all of a sudden we had to do something, and the prices were quite grim, so we decided that we had the infrastructure and we had the staff, so we got on with it and we processed. So
superb. And we've got some cooking up at the moment to try as well.
Yeah, we're going to try some burgers and some chipolatas, and and then we'll have a look in the deer park and see some Swedish fallow.
Before heading home, it's feeding time in the park and an opportunity to look at some of Paul's bucks.
So I'm just looking at a group of does down the bottom here at the moment. We'll get a range on them in a second. So I'm just filming through with 1x magnification. I'll just pop it up and change the magnification to 4x there, so we can see what the comparison is.
Leica says the Calonox View can detect targets up to a distance of 3,000 metres.
Just have a nice little scan through that.
Recognise targets up to 1,000 metres.
And again, the clarity is very good.
And precisely identify them up to 500 metres.
We'll go back to 1x, because we've got a little group of bucks just over on our left, and that we'll be able to pick up just through the hedge, right? So we'll look through there on those, just give us an idea. There's some birds in the hedges as well. So again, I mean, you can see that they're definitely boys. But we'll just go back and look at these. Those down the bottom, I'll just get a range on those. So that's at 300 yards where they are now.
It's been a busy morning with lots of half chances, some of them thanks to the thermal, but not all. For more information about the Leica Calonox View, go to leicacamera.com. Thank you, Roy. Now for more glow-in-the-dark fun, it's David on the Fieldsports channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. 2/3 of gamekeepers across the UK have received abuse and threats because of their job. That's the shock finding of a survey by BASC, Countryside Alliance, Game Farmers Association and National Gamekeepers Organisation. More than 1,000 people responded to the survey held at the end of 2020. Abuse on social media was rising, according to 56% of respondents. Physical and verbal abuse were up by 32% and 37%. Some gamekeepers also reported pressure from abuse led directly to the breakdown of personal relationships. Commenting on the report findings, Environment Secretary George Eustace insisted anyone responsible should feel the full force of the law. An auctioneer has sold a snow leopard skin. The 19th century rug went up for sale at an auction in the south of England last week. The IUCN lists snow leopards as vulnerable, with a global population fewer than 10,000 and declining. Swan Fine Art says it sold the rug for more than £1,000.
If you want a snow leopard, you can't have one because you can't go and hunt them anymore. So this is possibly one of the few chances you'll get to have something on your wall that nobody else is ever going to be able to get hold of.
Green groups are bothering Buckingham Palace about grouse shooting. The Queen owns grouse moors at Whitewell in the Forest of Bowland and Goathland on the North York Moors. According to the Telegraph, the Queen is under pressure to ban grouse shooting, but only quotes complaints from the Green groups and convicted criminal Luke Steele of banned blood sports on the North York Moors. The Queen's estate says no. A ban on trail hunting on Bolsover District Council land has stalled. The debate stopped after councillors realised the council didn't own land suitable for trail hunting. Countryside Alliance said that the council acknowledged that it owns just 5.5 acres of land, mainly consisting of car parks and allotments, which no hunt has ever been anywhere near. Councillor Nick Clark, who introduced the motion, says he acted out of class war rage. The GWCT is in the middle of its big farmland bird count. Farmers and land managers across the country will head to parts of their land to spend 30 minutes counting birds. It's as simple as that, and not too late to get involved. Last year, 1,800 people took part. GWCT staff have been giving tips on how to recognise species.
One of the main things you'll notice about a lapwing first is its call. So they have the very iconic peewit call. And you'll also tend to find them in a flock at this time of year. So it might be between 5 and 10 birds, but it also might be up to sort of 100, couple of hundred birds. And that's really quite amazing to see.
Bird profiles are available for download on the BFBC website. The count helps identify birds that are flourishing and ones that need support. Taking part is easy. Simply head over to bfbc.org.uk to download a count form. Grab your wellies and binoculars and head outside for half an hour. Farmland in Ireland could become off-limits for dog walkers. The Irish Farmers Association says sheep are being torn apart by dogs or frightened into ditches and drains by dogs let off their leads to rampage through fields. A spate of attacks prompted the campaign called No Dogs Allowed, which includes posters placed on farm gates across the country. Similar attacks spiked in England over Christmas, with several attacks over the festive season. Britain's Vet Times website has mistaken a questionnaire filled in by cat owners for peer-reviewed science. It claims that cats thrive on a vegan diet. A survey of cat owners in America found that 20% of vegan cats in the survey are less likely to suffer from adverse health consequences, even though they're obligate carnivores. The Pet Food Manufacturers Association has stepped in to say there is not enough evidence to suggest feeding cats a plant-based diet has health benefits. A hunting resort favoured by Nelson Mandela on a reserve in South Africa has been destroyed by fire. Bongani Mountain Lodge in Mpumalanga was attacked in apparent retaliation for shooting a poacher. The resort is a popular place to stay for people visiting nearby Kruger National Park. Director Stefan Schneier said the lodge was evacuated after a tip-off on Saturday and the lodge was completely destroyed after an overnight firefight between the reserve's rangers and the poaching gang. One of the rangers is accused of killing a gang member in late January. Polish media reports say that 13 deer have died after falling in a frozen lake. Video posted online supposedly shows local people trying to rescue the animals at Lake Eansgore in the town of the same name in West Pomeranian Voivodeship. The ice broke under the herd and only a few were saved. Members of a local hunting association blamed antler thieves, saying they used fireworks to drive the herd onto the lake. Several Facebook users said the rescuers were actually part of the gang of thieves. Polish broadcaster TVP cited sources saying police have identified several suspects. 2021 has got off to a bad start for hunting in the USA, says founder of Blood Origins, a non-profit conservation website. In a video titled "We Have to Figure This Out, We Have to Adapt," Robbie Kroger says attacks on the hunting and shooting community are intensifying. In the first 5 weeks of the year, a Connecticut senator put forward a motion to ban the import and trade of 6 African species. In California, a lawmaker proposed a complete ban on bear hunting in the state, although it was pulled 4 days later. New Mexico Democrats have cleared a major hurdle in banning trapping and want to end gun training for kids under 12. Robbie told Fieldsports News the future of hunting is at stake.
You're always going to have the faction that says, as I said in the video, oh, that's just what we do. We're not going to change. And if you look at the comments on that video, there's a lot of them that says, we're not going to change. Hunting should never change. Well, isn't that how we got to where we are today? And if hunting thinks that it doesn't have to change, it's not going to be around any longer.
The state of Victoria in Australia has announced a short season and low bag limit for ducks. Local duck shooters are furious and say the government is acting on ideological grounds, not science. The law says duck shooters can take 10 birds per day for a 12-week season per year. This year, following pressure by the Animal Justice Party and the RSPCA, Victoria's Game Management Authority set the limit to 2 birds a day for 3 weeks. Rob Fickling from beyondthedivide.com.au says shooters are bombarding Agricultural Minister Mary Ann Thomas with letters and emails demanding an explanation.
This is ridiculous. We've got animal extremists infiltrating this government that has shown it's really unfriendly towards hunters. And amidst all the COVID restrictions last year against hunting, then we saw a banning of firearm sales, a restriction of ammo sales under COVID. We've had just blow after blow, and we're pretty pissed off. We're disappointed, we're angry, we're frustrated. So we're fighting back.
And finally, here's a video of some kittens. Norway is about to outlaw shooting kittens in the head. The government is planning to introduce a law saying that only a vet can put a cat to sleep. The body charged with pushing through the new rule is the Norwegian Food Safety Authority. Thanks to Per Holmseth for that story. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. And as I remind you, every week our news comes thanks to our ever-growing membership, who also benefit from offers and competitions. I announced the winner of the Caddyshack Evo Catapult competition last week. This week you may remember wildlife and sporting artist Katie Hargreaves, who went stalking with Paul Childerley in the autumn. The more unusual because Katie is a vegan. Well, the competition this week is for one of Katie's prints, which you can see on katiehargreavesart.com, and ranges from bucks to ducks to elephants. You enter the competition on our Fieldsports Extra programme. And how do you watch Fieldsports Extra? You become a member of the Fieldsports Nation. Numbers are now approaching 1,000, and we have a special prize all about that next week. Go to fieldsportschannel.tv/membership to sign up. Now, while Roy gets fancy new Leica thermal, down in Devon, Tom Davies is still mucking around with 4-year-old Pulsar, but it gets results on rabbits. Tom Davies is rabbit shooting right next to the A38 trunk road, which connects South Devon to the rest of civilization, and despite the coronavirus lockdown, it's busy tonight.
Yes, they don't mind the road at all, really. I think they actually get quite used to it, so when it comes to controlling them, it actually makes life a bit easier, because that sound sort of gets rid of any other sound that we're making, especially vehicles driving around. Where they're doing the damage, it's drilled wheat. So there's one corner there they've actually completely decimated it. The farmer's getting fed up with it, and it's got to be sorted out really. They've got to be controlled. I've got my .17 HMR. I'll be using the Pard 007 clipped on the back of that. Very good little piece of kit. And then I'll be using the Pulsar Thermal XQ50. They'll be using that to spot and then straight onto the Pard for shooting. 9 times out of 10, if I can take the headshot on them, I will do, because I will be processing them and they'll be going into the food chain. But in cases like this where they are doing damage, if they don't present that good headshot, then I will be taking that chest shot just to control the numbers, because they are doing the damage. I'm not there for just meat purposes.
The first rabbits are right in front of us as we enter the field. One of them presents a problem for Tom. It doesn't fall over.
Sort of shook it off and ran off. But so we had a couple there, which was nice. But I don't know what happened to that other one. Just sort of so come on, bring it on, and ran off. You see, this is the corner where they are doing most of the damage. From a distance, you can see the rest of the field's green, but you can see from a distance this is all brown here. Obviously when you're stood on top of it this close, it doesn't actually look that bad. As we come into the field after the first couple of shots, they sort of dispersed a bit, and there was about 15 or so just in this little corner here themselves, but they did disperse after that.
Finding the rabbits can be difficult, even with the thermal. Once he has found them, Tom has a useful trick for getting them back from the top of the hill to his truck.
The shooting sticks I use is the Viperflex. When you get a few rabbits down, it's quite an easy way to drag them all back. So you can get game carriers and stuff to carry them. That saves carrying that. You can use your Viperflex. Grab your knife, just slice through the hock there like that. Little slit there, like you would hang something up. Grab the other, put it through, just to create that there. See, it's fairly strong, it'll hold itself. What you do, slide them down like that. And that creates a little drag, and you can fill that right up. I've had anything from 20 rabbits onto that before, and they don't break.
Tom brings them back down to the bottom of the hill, paunches them, and hangs them up in his custom game carrier in the back of his truck. Job done.
I think I can fit about 80 odd rabbits in there. So
really?
Yeah. So that also works well. Again, they slide through nicely and slide them back off again, so it's great.
And have you fixed the square section bar?
It's in the process.
Thanks, Tom. Next up, we have a bargain hunter for you. The Braces of Bristol website has a special offer on Blaser carbon shooting sticks, which have a retail price of £243. Quote FEB21 at the checkout and you will see that magically drop to £200. Braces only had a dozen of these sticks left yesterday morning, and I announced the same deal in Fieldsports Extra last night, so you might need to be quick. Now, the RSPB likes to lecture us shooters and gamekeepers about how to run the countryside. So how do they get on? News editor Ben O'Rourke takes gamekeeper John Cavana on a walk around the RSPB Geltsdale Reserve in Cumbria, a former grousemoor.
So we've just arrived on a fine bright day with a bit of snow on the ground at the flagship moor owned by the RSPB Geltsdale Nature Reserve. First impressions, there's a small car park that's getting a few visitors here. We've seen a blackbird, a chaffinch and a magpie so far. We'll have a little bit of a look round, see what signs we can see in the snow, what birds we can see, what habitat is like, and we'll keep you updated.
In 2008, Natural England found that RSPB's Geltsdale Nature Reserve in Cumbria had the lowest number of moorland birds compared with surrounding managed grouse moors. We're there to see whether it had managed to turn itself around. Within minutes of walking through the gate, a roe deer runs across the track ahead. Is this a sign of thriving heathland?
So we're on the fringes of the heather moorland, so the habitat would be suitable for the small mammals that we'd expect to see, which we might see some signs in the snow. We've seen one of the larger mammals there with a roe deer, but Plenty of footfall around. Most of them seem to be, and we can hear the dog barking in the background as well. Somebody's just pulled up. Quite a few dogs are walked in the area, so it would be a concern. Controlling the public and managing the nature at the same time would have its complications, for definite. There's definitely a sign of dog around here.
John starts spotting some familiar techniques the RSPB is using to manage the reserve.
So they've obviously tried to maintain the public on a track, the same as what many of the grouse moors would do. By the track we have a gutter for any of the runoff water to come through. They're then challenging it with a bit of pipe under the road, the same as what they would do on many of the grouse moors, for the water to go down into this wet area, create a bit of habitat there with the wetlands, which at the moment is frozen, but not a lot of wildlife there at the moment. We quite often get slated on the, why we dug a gutter along a moor track, yet these have done exactly the same here. We've got a tractor that's been off-road, and down there's a tractor track there. Anything they do, heather burning, predator control, the engineering side of things, the machinery that they use, it's acceptable for them to do. But if a gamekeeper does that same thing, they get criticised for doing it. So it's bad for the environment, it's bad for the nature.
The 2008 report found that not only had hen harrier populations failed, but the reserve had a large amount of carrion crows.
When I looked on the website, the species that you would expect to see, the magpie and the carrion crow, which we've seen plenty of, doesn't appear on the website. The species that do appear on the website, which draw us here as a visitor, we've not seen them as yet. We've got a buzzard going across us just here now. It's a common buzzard, there's about 70,000 pairs. It's not a rare species, it's green listed. Kestrel.
A rare treat. The kestrel swoops down to sink its claws into a vole or mouse, which it then tucks into on a nearby fence post.
In decline, the kestrel, we used to see them quite a lot. Definitely in a big decline, and not enough being done into finding out why. Lots of different theories on why they've gone down. Is it because the prey species is in decline? Is the prey species have been taken by other raptors, owls, kites, buzzards? We really need to do more to help that particular species.
Next stop, the supposed highlight of the ramble round Geltsdale, a tarn with a viewing platform. But whatever wonders previous visitors saw may never be known.
Or wet. Obviously not maintained. The ranger hasn't been round to ensure that the visitors' thoughts that they leave. That goes back to 2018. You thought that as a ranger you would be interested to find out what the visitors were spotting and making a note of. They've taken the effort to make a note of it. It should be the effort to keep the records straight. Maybe then they could update the website so that we do see the species that are found here rather than what they think we should find here. No black grouse, no hen harriers.
The RSPB website lists barn owls, curlew, lapwings and wingchat. We saw evidence of pheasant too, but the most activity we saw was at a bird feeding station.
Blue tits are using it well.
Despite the vast wealth of the charity, which made £147 million in the 2019 to 2020 financial year, the visitor centre, like the rest of the reserve, is unstaffed. Even the disabled toilets are locked. Studies consistently show the RSPB has failed to create habitats at Geltsdale that attract the birds it wants.
If you're a landowner, you have to make a living, or you're entitled to make a living for your land. So at Geltsdale, for example, if you owned it, and you looked at it and said, "I'm going to make a living out of this," well, I might be able to get a bit of rent for the grazing. I could plant a few trees. That wouldn't make me any money, but I might get some subsidy. And I could run a grouse moor and sell the grouse shooting for £150 a brace or whatever, and I would get an income. The RSPB's model is you get rid of all that, and then you build a car park, and it's subsidised by the NGO.
Well, it's absolutely stunning landscape. There's an awful lot of fencing gone on, tree planting, not a lot of bracken control. The tree planting is probably going to spoil the view of some of that landscape, but I suppose it's the right tree in the right place that counts. Pretty disappointed on what the number that we have seen for a reserve that is the flagship and the money that's been spent on it. They criticise all the other moorland management. I would expect to see more than what we have done when we've come here.
Places like Abernethy, well, a lot of the places. I mean, if you look at more accessible places like Geltsdale, it would be very interesting to know how successful they are in producing what you would think the end product was, which is more birds, and more birds from red listed species.
I joined the RSPB, or the Young Ornithologist Club, way back in the 70s when I was only 9 years old. It's a shame to see the organisation has changed very much from conservation, which I'm fully hand on heart agree with that we should be doing, has turned into a political organisation that criticises the way things other people are doing it, yet does the exact same things on its reserves that it manages.
Thanks, John and Ben. Now, from a small corner of the north of England, and thank goodness the RSPB don't own enough land to do a lot of damage, to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube. It's Hunting YouTube. This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. Fair Game Pursuits makes a film profiling not a great shot nor a great gun, but a great game bird. This is all about the pheasant and pheasant shooting in the UK. Thanks to Mark Catterall for sending this in, and as a special request, hello to Mark's son James. We Brits don't have a monopoly on pheasants, however the Wild Serbia channel is out after the bird near Zmijevo. It's in Serbian, but it is the same rough shooting day that everyone enjoys. The Flush channel is also out after pheasants, this one in the USA on North Dakota's Mallard Island. Tommy from Rural Pest Control Whitwell sends me his latest rabbit shooting video, a short sharp compilation of shots. If you like dog work, My Spaniel's hunting and trialling in New Zealand is sending his spaniel Archie out after rabbits. Staying in New Zealand, Waikato Moana is shooting fallow deer for the freezer on what Tony describes as a big chunk of land. 2 good deer shots. Hobby Kazar has got a major feral and collared dove problem in a farmyard in Spain. The shooter is simply standing in the yard and going bang. And finally, one of our field tester gun shops is uploading films regularly to its own YouTube channel. Find out what's on offer from Staffordshire-based Shooting Sports UK. That's it for this week. I've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Well, that is it for this week. If you haven't done so, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about this show, Fieldsports Britain. It's at 7 PM UK time every Wednesday. And this has been Fieldsports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.